He's here. And
Hello.
hello. There's nothing like going live. We are live. So thank you. I know that we changed the time, so I don't know if that took you by surprise, but I just did a recap. And we have got until 12 o'clock, and that's probably just as well because there is a lot of updates, as always, for us to go to. And we haven't done a live session together since June.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. But the good news is that after today, we are bringing our monthly sessions together back. I know some of you have registered already, and handily, I have got the link available. So not to distract you while we are going through the latest updates, but if you want to get super organized, we have put in our diaries monthly update sessions for October, November, January, and February as well. So please do join us. But Andy, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, sorry for running a couple of minutes.
That's all right.
10:45 was like 15 minutes prep. We start at 11. I definitely misunderstood something, but never mind. You're here.
Yeah. Who knows that it's so unrehearsed every time we do this anyway?
Oh, we've done it enough.
We have. So Andy, I've done my intro. We've got about 80 people watching live, and I know that there'll be several hundred that watch this as a recording. So let's do a quick recap if people aren't watching this live. That I am a marketer, a freelance marketer running my own consultancy business for 11 years now. And I work with some amazing selection of clients. And I'm not just saying that because I can see some of them are in the chat, but I work with law firms, universities, manufacturers, household cleaning products. And of course, I do teaching and training as well. And people are really happy that the monthly updates are back. So are we. Andy, your role since we've been doing this has changed. So give us an update.
Yeah, just had a bit. So yeah, we've been doing this for, I don't know, 2 and a bit years now, I think.
Yeah.
So in that time, the company that I was one of the founding team of, ContentCal, got bought by Adobe, which has been a strange old journey. Good, but been a bit crazy. So now I'm a senior product person in Adobe, whatever that means. But yes, I'll never go away from my love of social. But basically, since creating ContentCal and doing that journey, building all of the ContentCal functionality into Adobe Express, which is also very exciting because Adobe Express is their take on Canva ultimately. So creativity for all, allowing everyone to create template-driven images, and then with the addition of all of the ContentCal features in it, allows you to create and then schedule those assets, which was a huge gap that we had at ContentCal, right? So it's like it give people a calendar, which is basically a blank canvas. For some people, that's great. For some others, it doesn't quite work out. So yeah, really excited about this next step. But anyway, that's enough about me.
No, I will just share though that for anyone that's interested or want to have a look, you have a really active community Facebook group, don't you, for the Adobe Express community? So if anyone wants to look at that, that would probably be the first place to go.
Definitely. Yeah, so that's the Adobe Express Insiders on Facebook. And yeah, if any of the things I talk about of any use and you like these social media updates, I talk about them every single week on my LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the place where I hang out.
Yes.
So with
if you get the slides ready, and I will helpfully paste in my pre-prepared our LinkedIn handle so people can find us as well. There we go. So
awesome. All right.
All organised. There we go.
Amazing.
It wasn't a quiet summer, was it?
It was not. It was not. Yeah, there is never a quiet time in social media, as you know. And for those that have seen this before, I say the same thing every time. So permit me to say it again really quickly. We cover 3 things, trends, some data points you need to know, and we go network by network and talk through all of the specific updates. So with that, it's also worthwhile kind of calling out the fact that this is for informational purposes only, right? So the whole idea of this session is to give you, a bit of open thought to go, what are all the things that are happening? What are the changes here? What are the new features? Without thinking that you need to jump and make any changes immediately, right? It's here to give you the broader context, right? So as is the case with anything in life, focusing on a smaller amount of things and doing those well is better than trying to spread yourself too thin. So that's one thing I always call out. So let's start with the trends, and Luann, chime in at any point with anything you want to add. So this is a very nerdy slide to start with, lots of data. So hopefully everyone's got a coffee in hand. But social media is a source of news. I think this is a really important data point to pay attention to. And there's been some significant shifts here because naturally the in the moment nature of social media means that news is a key reason and a key piece of intent why users will go to social media. And of course, if you're a product or service that has anything to say that's timely and topical with a source of news, for example, if you're in anything to do with finance right now, you'd be well placed to be putting out some of your content right now.
I love that you found a positive in it, Andy.
Yeah, there is some positive in this maelstrom of nonsense, but yeah, we won't. That's for another.
It's good for content. It's good for content. Yeah, great.
Yeah, good for content. Yes, so there's been some shifts here. So Facebook still rules the roost as far as news consumption. So this is where people will go to. So this is US adults, but this actually, even though this is US focused, this actually has the same representation across Western world. So will apply in the main for the UK, although the percentile differences, there are some variants there. But fundamentally, Facebook is the #1 place that people go to get the news, followed by YouTube. And that actually surprised me, actually, that YouTube was #2 and above Twitter. It just once again goes to show the shift that's happening at YouTube at the moment, where it's not less about long form, but the usage behaviors of YouTube are changing massively. It's not always about long form content, SEO and search. It's that as well as short form, in the moment, more social media orientated use cases. So I think that's actually fascinating. Twitter, Insta, TikTok being there, I don't think there's any other surprises with that. Clearly, like LinkedIn's prompts of like daily news rundowns don't seem to be doing much for the user base going to LinkedIn as a primary source of news, interestingly. But outside of YouTube, I don't think there's any particular surprises to what products are most used when it comes to where people go to find news out. But when you actually look at how that's grown and changed over time over the last couple of years, then it gets really, really interesting. So naturally, you can see some declines of where Twitter used to be initially. Facebook on a downward trend. I mean, that's quite common for what we're seeing with Facebook at the moment. YouTube's pretty level. Instagram up a little bit. And then obviously, of course, we've got TikTok, which is where increasingly we're seeing more and more people go to TikTok to get a different take on emerging events. And I think that's once again, like with YouTube, that's a really interesting user behaviors to how people want to consume news. They want to consume it on their own terms, and they want to consume it with a perspective from someone that they trust. And I think that's very interesting, because we know trust in the media is all-time low. You look at every chart, media trust is on the floor. So it's very interesting, and I think that that represents some interesting perspectives for our own social strategies if we have things to say that are newsworthy. That's my take on this. I think, even though it's quite nerdy, I think it's really important for strategy. Any take on this as well for yourself, Luann?
I think this is a really important headline and to be aware of, and probably no real surprise because of the real-time nature of social media that, I've always said, if you want to know what's happening, Twitter's where you're going to, find out what that big noise is outside or what's going on locally. But I think there is some, this is just, obviously we can only show snapshots, otherwise we would be here for days if we went through all the reports that we geekly absorb. But I think there's some additional data behind this in terms of generational differences as well. And I think one of the headlines came from Ofcom and how TikTok as a news source for younger people is actually what's driving a lot of this 100%. As well. So some generation stuff. But I also think one of the other headlines, and we haven't got it in here, but was reading about it yesterday, is social media as a source of news, but also social media as a channel for search as well. And the headlines around it being used for search. And what I was reading about last night, this morning, was how Google is now having to respond to that from their own products, because people are, turning to TikTok in particular and other social media as their way of discovery. So the whole nature of this channel that, is perhaps even getting too broad to do social media updates, and we could easily do 4 or 5, platform specific. It's just changing focus on what it can do and how it can help us and how it becomes part of our daily lives.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the search behavior changes are really, really interesting. We'll actually cover that slightly later on today.
Sure.
Facebook trends. So interesting times at Facebook. Video now makes up to 50% of the time that people spend on Facebook. So, you know, even though a lot of the media would like to paint a very kind of doomy, gloomy picture of Facebook, the reality is not always the case. It's still the most populated social channel. It still has the most monthly active users over everyone. So Facebook is not dying anytime soon.
Yeah.
But there are clearly some usage and behavioral changes. Yes, there are age range changes. Facebook's grip on younger audiences is shrinking, basically. Yeah. Younger audiences are going elsewhere. But video consumption is up. So 50% of all the time that's spent on Facebook is on video. So really read into that. If we do want to optimize for a Facebook strategy, then video is the focal point here. Facebook Reels clearly is an area. We'll speak lots about Reels today. I'm sure there'll be lots of comments around Reels today because there's some very interesting data on this. But yeah, Facebook want more video on the platform. They really want to push towards short form video. The thing I'm quite excited about with Facebook, and I've never used those two sentences, is the fact that I think for small businesses, there's more potential on Facebook than there's been for the last 12 or so years, because it's becoming less about the audience that you have, because Facebook are pushing more towards a TikTok style, which is called recommended content, which is less about showing content to people that follow you and pushing content wider beyond that. So, and that's the reason that TikTok succeeded, is that it's the content you see is less about the people that you follow. Yes, you'll see their content, but it'll be mixed in all of the things that the algorithm recommends for you. And that's the thing that keeps it engaging. So Facebook and Insta want a piece of that, hence they're moving to more recommended content. And the reason I'm giving all of that context is that has influenced the factors that decide how much your video content is seen on Facebook. So I think this is a really important thing to kind of make a note of here. So these are the 4 factors that Facebook announced. I think it was last week they put this out. The 4 factors that define your reach on Facebook and how far your videos get distributed. Number 1, originality. Read into that. Don't have it TikTok watermarked. That's all they mean. They didn't want to really say that, but that's all they mean.
That's what they
mean. Point 2, capture and retain attention, which simply means get people watching to the end. So the shorter the video you can do, so 60 seconds is ideal. If people watch to the end and that kind of retention curve is pretty flat, you're not seeing loads of people drop out at 5 seconds, Facebook love that. They want to have more of the content that's going to keep people on the platform. It's number 2 for a reason, is that this is above any other engagement metrics. And that's a big difference in the way that content's typically been ranked in the past, because it's not necessarily about those, you know, those really intent driven signals, which is like, I'm going to press like or comment on this. It's actually like, oh, I've just watched to the end and I've gone on to watch something else. That is what all of the video platforms want. So capture and retain attention. So that means shorter video, get people watching to the end, which means your hook needs to be on point. So in the first 5 seconds, give people a reason to want to watch to the end. Number 3, loyalty and intent. What that means is people that come back and watch your video again and again. What Facebook want to see, and this is exactly the same ranking algorithm or ranking measure as TikTok, is that they want to see people coming back to the same video again and again. So that then talks to the point of what you can do to influence that is about consistency. Even if you're just doing 1 video a week, having the same people come back to that again and again. For example, the social media roundups that I post on TikTok, for example, I only post 1 video a week now, and that drives all of my growth because TikTok likes the fact that people come back to the same video every single week. So loyalty, intent, and then we've got engagement. We know about engagement, but the fact is, it's interesting that it's 4th on the list. So that the way we get reach is very different these days. Any take on that, Luann?
Just your comment about recommendations. I hadn't thought about that as being the big shift around content and how we consume, and that's a very different mindset that we do need to be in. That's a massive shift. But because we've got time, Andy, I know in your book, and since you launched the book, your comment then about reach and how that's your number 1 focus, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Many people as eyes, content in front of as many eyes as possible is number one.
Okay.
Right, let's talk about Reels usage. Right, there's both a positive and a negative story to paint here. So here we're looking at Q2 to Q2 2021 to Q2 2022, and this is about the volume of Insta Reels usage as a kind of percentage of what brands are posting. So that color here is carousel videos, smaller slice, and then single image posts is the biggest. So we've seen a steady evolution of brands starting to use the content formats that, well, one, require more effort, but two are the ones that actually require or generate the biggest reach. Seeing a steady increase of Reels, but Reels only at best makes up about 20% of what brands are creating at the moment. But then when you look at it from another perspective, which is where are the interactions coming from, this paints a very clear picture as to the content formats that are driving the interactions. And here you can see, we've spoken lots and see a lots online about like, oh, it's all about Reels or whatever. But this data paints that picture like super clearly, because you can very much see that there has been a shift in how Instagram is ranking and being able to distribute that content based on what is the content format. So it's actually, I'm kind of hesitating whether I should say this or not, but it's nearly the fact that the format is more important than the message. And I don't really want to say that because I want to be very cautious about saying that. But for Instagram, the format really is the king at the moment, which is not good, put it that way. And I think it makes me very uncomfortable to say that, as you can tell, because content should always be content first, and that's still my recommendation. It would be, I'm sure it's yours as well, Luann. But the fact is that Instagram are just restricting the hell out of single image posts, which is at over 50% of what people are creating. Purely they're doing that to influence how many interactions Reels get. So we could talk about this for hours, and I need to stop myself. But what's your take, Luann?
I agree, and it's almost one of those sit on your hands and nod and say you're right. And the chat is great. People are having conversations. Ella's saying that's not good, but I would say at least Instagram, in Adam Mosseri with his weekly updates and everything, they are telling us this. They are being open and telling us that Reels is their focus and Reels is getting engagement and giving us the data and information. So it's not a case of what's happened in the past where everyone's kind of gone, oh, this is dropping, this isn't working, what's happening, where are you struggling? They have told us this, and so we can actually take those messages internally and go kind of, Instagram are telling us this, we have to shift. It's not, as I hate the kind of the hearsay and the rumbles and that the answers are in your own data. Yes, we can see from published data, but also our own data. But the fact is, they've told us this, so we are going to have to go with it.
I think that is, absolutely the case.
Yeah.
But then the other side of this, there's a positive and a negative to it, because, there's still the awkward problem for Instagram of TikTok, and Instagram are kind of compromising themselves to try and battle this. Because the latest report, I think Business Insider leaked this, is that from the data that they saw, which was internal kind of TikTok and Instagram data, is that TikTok users spend 10 times the amount of time on the platform versus Instagram. And that metric of the amount of time people spend on the platform, well, we're going to focus on a few data points related to that in a second, actually. The time that people spend on the platform is actually more important than, just overall monthly active users. Because if someone just logs in once a month, they're known as a monthly active user, which is what all of the social media channels report. But actually, when someone, or the average user, is spending, an hour, 2 hours per day on the platform, then there is a much higher percentage of our content reaching that individual. So optimizing our content towards those channels which have the highest amount of user attention is quite a sensible thing to think about. Reels engagement. So you mentioned Adam Mosseri, and this is very interesting, because like Q2 22, so Q2 ends at the end of June, April, May, June, but from June to September, the last quarter, so Q3, Reels engagement dropped 13.6%. So Reels went crazy, and I remember posting about it and giving some examples as to like, oh my word, Reels is just going crazy. You post something, you get 2,000 views, even with like 5 followers. I was like, what's happening here? And then Adam Mosseri, then it all kicked off, and you had this whole campaign, make Instagram great again type of and then obviously Adam Mosseri came on and was like, oh, you know, we've made a mistake. And then basically all they've done is restrict Reels engagement again, where it's kind of like it's where it was, you know, 6 months ago. So basically the message here is that we can't odds this as, you know, creators, as businesses. We can't control it. Yeah. And if you look at some content, and we can't judge our content, which is really awkward because we can't be like, oh yeah, this content did really well last week and this one didn't. It's not our fault if something's working or something isn't, because it's so unpredictable. And that, I don't have a suggestion for this because it's a flipping nightmare to manage. My only suggestion is that I would be focusing more on TikTok than Instagram right now, because it's more predictable, and that's yeah, and that's probably quite a bold statement. Anyway, over to you, Luann.
I just feel, Andy, like we need a social media management group hug to get over this lack of control, and need a bit of reassurance that, you know, we are all doing the right things and we are good at our jobs and you know, doing the right things. But yes, with what we do on these channels, there is a lack of control, and we, you know, they do lead us more than we think they do. But yes, you know, we do still have to think about our messaging and our objectives, but you know, it's always a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like this has gone a bit kind of negative now.
Come on.
We get more excited. We're going to go into some data. Nothing's bring happiness like some numbers, right? Surely.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Gen Z platform usage. We speak sometimes about Gen Z, and you always have some really good takes on this, Luann. So I'm going to hand over to you in a second. But it's kind of interesting because if you look at it in 2 dimensions, there are apps that are used very heavily from a monthly active user perspective, and there are apps where people spend the most amount of time. You know, so we look at it in 2 columns here. So when we're thinking about a strategy for Gen Z, Luann, you can probably remind me as to what age range Gen Z is. I always forget.
They were born up until 2012. So the 18-year-olds going to the university this year were born in 2004.
Right.
And I only remember this because I did a presentation 2 days ago. So that's why. So we've had Gen Z as 18-year-old. Yeah. So my fact around that, because I can remember it, is 2004 is the 18-year-olds. Just to give some context, do they know it was Christmas? Band-Aid was Christmas #1 for when they were born.
Good Lord.
So
I'm nice, to be honest.
Get excited again, Andy, because otherwise, like me, I was like, yeah, you know. But there's lots of stats around this, and there's a big focus on Gen Z. And I think what I always do say as well, because I do a lot of work in this area, is that we have our audience, and we may say, you know, we need to be talking to Gen Z, and these are the important ones, but they are also heavily influenced by friends and family and different generations. So I think Gen Z, because of the age group they are, we can never actually go, they're in isolation. We only need to look at what they're doing and their behaviors, and they're on TikTok, they're on Be Real. There's a lot of a bigger picture around communicating with Gen Z.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, looking at these stats by, you know, just because they've got a lot of users doesn't necessarily mean that they are heavily used as well. Yeah. So, you know, thinking if Gen Z is your target, these are the platforms to consider. And this slide deck will also get shared as well, because there's a lot of data from here. So talking about Gen Z, let's think about social media usage demographics. And this is this kind of breaks down something quite interesting, because, sorry, it's a little bit small, but what you'll see is the different demographics. So Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, etc. And here it's broken down into UK as well, which is quite useful. And then we can start to see across all social media platforms, where do we see the majority of usage from? And actually, one thing kind of take away from this, from the UK perspective, it's incredibly well balanced, the amount of demographics, and how frequent, like how high from a UK perspective, the average sessions per user are. As you can see, actually, from a Gen Z perspective, the highest out of any of the other kind of evolved economies. And then Gen X slightly higher than millennials as well. So I always talk about the social media demographics have shifted, right? And this is a good example of that. So those 35 to 44-year-olds, even more active than the 25 to 34-year-olds as far as social media is concerned. So really broad, healthy looking demographics. Average time spent per day, this is US data, but once again, quite indicative of Western world anyway. TikTok has just overtaken YouTube, which is pretty darn significant, to be honest, because YouTube has always won that. But, you know, no surprise because people are watching long form content. Either way, we're quite used to seeing TikTok at the top there. But this is adult oriented content. So this is, or adult oriented users, so 18 plus. But if you want to look at it across the whole globe and really who's winning the race in terms for the amount of time that users spend per month on the platform, TikTok is then suddenly incredibly strong. You know, that as we see here, it's, you know, it's nearly double what Instagram is. And then, you know, this is really good to think about when we think about our social strategy and how we'll potentially prioritize those platforms. Because like I said, the more time people spend on those platforms, the more opportunity there is for our content to be seen. Unsurprisingly, that you get the highest organic reach on TikTok and the highest organic engagement. It's no surprise because when people are spending the most amount of time there, there's the largest chance of our content being seen. Simple as that. You mentioned Be Real, Luann, and there we go. Finish with a positive story of Be Real is doing a Clubhouse, put it that way. It is very much at the start of this hype cycle. I'm curious to know, has anyone spent much time on Be Real? Is anyone actively using it versus just kind of testing it out? I'd be very interested to know in the chat, that's for sure. What about you, Luann?
Well, yes, I am. And I'm happy to share this, is that my only friend on there at the moment is my husband. So I kind of feel that I'm kind of blowing into the wind. But I did talk to Beth Thomas, who's on our later session, about this earlier in the week, and we're going to friend. So please friend me on Be Real. And if the notification goes off during today's event, please do take your pictures and share them, because I love the concept of it. And I will share an example again, because I used this on a presentation earlier this week. If you're thinking about how could a business use this and a brand use it, and I saw one example from a fast food restaurant where when the notification went off, they did a selfie of a knife and fork, and their photo was of some packaging with an offer code written on the side of it. So it was kind of, you know, get 10% off when you order online. And, you know, did it. So they were ready for the notification to go off as a brand. Haven't seen too much of that, but I like it. But there's also, I think it's in your deck, Andy, you know, as when a new feature comes on and we see a spike like this, the other platforms want to get themselves involved in it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Someone said, I stopped using it when I realized I don't do anything very interesting. I think that's about the time of day that it goes off. You know, you kind of think, I'm just in front of my computer. And I was again yesterday and today. So, yeah, it's a bit of fun, isn't it? But I do like the authenticity of it, and that it can't be staged or pre-planned too much. It's almost like, you know, I don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah,
today.
I agree.
It's fun. But yeah, I don't have any friends on there, so please help me.
Yeah, neither do I. Maybe
we could be friends.
I think for my personal take on it is this is another kind of wait and see example. Yeah. Yes, there's sometimes this first mover advantage, but to be honest, it's this chart is misleading because it's this is short term versus what will happen in the long term. It's the very start of the hype cycle. It's very heavily funded, so it props up a lot of growth. They haven't, because it's too early to report any kind of monthly active usage or user retention. Just because people have installed it doesn't mean they're using it heavily. Yeah. So I think it's just it's a wait and see. I would say it's one of those things where you're like, oh wow, it's new, it's exciting. I'd encourage you to have a play around with it, but to start thinking about you as a business, jumping into it, I think I would be a little bit more circumspect on that.
Yeah.
Right. Do you want to take us through Insta new features, Luann?
We shall. Yes. some of this relates to what we've already been talking about, but this one, managing quality. So even though you did talk about them being in control of the messaging a bit more, I like the fact that there's more quality control, particularly coming through from Instagram. And, you know, this is about encouraging you to do what most of us are doing anyway, I guess, in terms of words, phrases, emojis in there, just kind of trying to just level up and make people think about their posts before they hit the publish button. Feed post recommendations. So again, this is Instagram sharing with us what is important, what is encouraging, you know, how they're ranking, pushing your content forward. And as Andy said, it's all about recommendations. Thank you. We're going to have some Be Real going on later on. You know, so what are Instagram pushing in terms of your feed posts? It's dwell time. It's the likelihood of users commenting on a post, likelihood of users liking, resharing, and tapping through to the profile as well. So as I said, you know, they are giving us the insights and the information that we need. This is where the reels come in, and I quite like this one around adding topics. So before you post your reel, you can kind of tag it effectively to kind of say what your topic is. I think this is still in testing / rolling out as a feature, but again, it's all about getting your content found, because if you can tell people you know what your reel is about, then it will come up more in recommendations. So nice little feature, add that one.
Exactly. I think just in general, I think Instagram is moving beyond hashtags as a concept anyway. So it's more of a, you don't need to change anything right now, but certainly in next month's update, expect to see some more stuff about how Instagram continue to evolve away from reliance on hashtags.
Yeah. This is, you know, this is the retweet, isn't it, of Instagram, and has never been possible up until now, unless you use third-party apps, and sometimes they disappear and break anyway. So the fact that they're testing a reposting feature to get your content out to more followers, I'd like to see this one happen, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah. And back, this one, stories. Don't you love that they have announced that videos up to 60 seconds long will no longer be broken into segments, so you'll no longer get that 15-second blip between things. So longer stories up to 60 seconds. Interesting that they're still adding little updates to this as well, but I'm a fan of this one.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually a user-focused update for once.
Makes a change. Making it easier to make reels, I think, is interesting, and something that they you know, Facebook and Instagram add this all the time, don't they? But just this ability to make a reel from a story, and maybe that's part of their changing it to 60 seconds, because it would be much easier to turn that story into a reel then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think the whole general concept of cross-posting, repurposing is something that Instagram are leaning on heavily to get people creating. But that does make life easy for us as content creators, that's for sure.
Yeah. And okay, on to Meta. So Facebook auto creating reels from video posts. So the same thing, isn't it, effectively, of making life easier, encouraging people to be able to do these forms of content in 1 or 2 clicks. So Ella's really pleased about reposts. So reels on Facebook as well. So again, making it easier. This one I love. We've seen over the time that we've been doing these updates, Andy, quite a lot of developments in terms of Facebook groups. Mm-hmm. And this is a feature being added to groups around being able to create a real-time chat within your Facebook group about topics. And I think that's a really nice positive step forward to make the groups even more valuable than they are. Because I would say right now, if I was to, why am I using Facebook? It's about the value that I get from groups, whether they're peer-to-peer, whether they're local community, things like that. That's where I get my knowledge and insight. So the fact that you could jump on and have a real-time chat with someone, I like that.
Yeah, agreed.
And this is the first time it's come up today. We've got through nearly half an hour without mentioning really the word creator, and how that is the term that is being used more and more by the platforms with features, monetization options for creators. But this is an interesting one for creators to be able to endorse each other. So then inviting them to follow each other as well. So we've seen collab features come up and kind of tagging each other, but just this almost additional level of a creator endorsement on Facebook, I think I like that one as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably open to a bit of spamming and misuse, I would say. I mean, like, even you look at this screenshot, select all 1,000 out of 36,000. So, I mean, it would be a very generous thing to do to this individual to invite 1,000 people to follow him. But it does go to show that if we have a community that we work within and we support other creators, for example, leveraging our other followers to recommend other suitable creators to follow, it could be a fantastic way of growing follower numbers. So yeah, it's a good opportunity, open to misuse though.
Or whether people want to monetize it behind the scenes. Again, just Facebook spotlighting rising creators, really kind of pushing them out there, encouraging them. That's who they want on the platform. They need to encourage their creators, because that's what's creating the content and getting people to go back. And then back to groups, being able to share group chats in DMs as well. So I think, sometimes if you look at groups, and there's a great question from Jade, we'll come on to that, just, how the threads can go on groups. So being able to kind of move things over to a DM between individuals or around comments, again, I think is a nice move. Twitter, this next update, so launches circles. The first thing I thought of is Google Plus. Remember that? How, the feature that people liked was being able to push an update out to a specific smaller group of people, the circle. And, I remember back at the time going, actually, if I'd had all of these platforms on a level playing field and a starting point, I liked that about Google Plus, was having this smaller group, this circle. So the fact that Twitter have launched it now as part of their developments, I think is one to look at, one to use, see how that works. But they're adding some really interesting features, aren't they? After such a long time of not doing anything, in this period of we don't know if Elon Musk is buying it or what's happening and directors leaving, that they are still kind of launching new things and features and quite significant changes.
I agree. I'm probably a little bit wary of investing too much time in Twitter right now, or building too much of a strategy related to it, because once again, it's kind of unpredictable. Quite a lot of the changes they've made haven't impacted growth, and of course, it's pretty hard to focus on a product strategy when there is the goings on that happening right now that you've already alluded to. So it is. I like the concept of the feature, but so jury's out for me on Twitter at the moment.
Well, so on that case, just as a plug for people to stay on or to look afterwards, Anu, who is doing a presentation at 12, has got some great examples of how the United Nations are using Twitter, not just on Twitter, but as gathering insights for other content as well. So to stay on for that. And there's some questions coming up in the chat, which we will pick up on. I've scribbled them down. Launching pinned replies. Again, we've seen this on LinkedIn recently, actually, in terms of being able to kind of pin that first comment. So I think this is another interesting development around the engagement and the chat that goes on the platform, that you can pin a reply. And I think that's useful if there's links in it or further information or stuff like that. A really simple one, but can be really useful.
Super useful. Agree.
And it's Spaces, which is the audio feature, which 18 months slightly after Clubhouse, but has really taken off, I think, for Twitter. I'm seeing more positive feedback about them, people finding it useful for their business individually. I haven't really got involved with them yet, but again, Anu's got an example in the next presentation. So Twitter is now kind of recommending Spaces.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to hear from you and
Stay on.
Sure.
And that you can now schedule them as well. So I think this comes back to a point we've had about consistency, isn't it? And kind of showing up consistently. And we know when we've done these monthly, we're showing up consistently, and we're going back to that. But if you have a space and an opportunity to regularly host one, the fact that you can now do all your scheduling and get that ready, another nice, simple addition. And we didn't do an update when this came out, but Twitter now really focusing on podcasts as well, and have announced that they're becoming a podcasting platform and being able to find podcasts on them. I don't know if that's because of the success of Spaces and audio and how people are perhaps going to Twitter more for audio only content. And as Jade has put, do we use Twitter more on the laptop or phone? Potentially this is because of the use of the phone and people listening to podcasts when they're out for a walk or at the gym and things like that, that they can find everything in one place. So I think that is a bit of a one to watch.
I agree. I think I quite like Twitter's strategy from this perspective, because whilst everyone went mad to bring out audio first tools thanks to Clubhouse, but obviously as Clubhouse diminished in popularity, Facebook binned off their effort, as did Instagram. They're all going to kind of audio only. LinkedIn continued with it, as did Twitter, and Twitter continued to double down. And I think there's an opportunity really for Twitter here, and I think it creates a really nice 360 experience, if you will, of live and on-demand audio first content, because there's still a demand for audio content. The growth of podcasts, you just need to look at to see that. So I think this is probably the bit I'm most excited about for Twitter. And if you're kind of an audio first creator, then Twitter is definitely going to be a place that you want to stay. Especially
because we talked so much about video, and I know that creating video can be a barrier. People don't necessarily want to be on screen all the time, and doing audio only is a really nice, perhaps almost a move into it, isn't it? If not having to see yourself, but hear yourself and then shift. So I think it's a nice other option. And this is just making it easier to share to other platforms. We've seen this on again, on Instagram to Facebook and cross-posting and things before. Surprised this wasn't there earlier and that we never spotted it as something that we wanted.
Yeah, such an obvious thing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, was it not there?
Yeah.
Just one update I think we've got from LinkedIn today, and that is audio. I think this is a feature of, if you have got that creator mode that we have talked about before, that you can change your profile, no cost, to a creator mode, which unlocks some additional opportunities. I haven't tried audio events on LinkedIn yet, but it's there. You can create the audio events, a bit like Spaces and Clubhouse really, but a nice addition. Definitely.
I think, audio, should have a nice fit for LinkedIn. They've taken a long time to roll it out, but this was a screenshot from my phone. I've just noticed a lot more promotion of it. So I'm going to be interested to see the growth of that. How are we doing for time, actually, Luann?
It's 11:30, so we've still got plenty of time.
Oh, awesome. Amazing. Right then, TikTok. Cool. Right. Unsurprisingly, a lot of the kind of most useful updates are coming from TikTok. So that is no surprise there. This metric, I wish the other platforms shared this, because considering this is the #1 criteria that all short form content is ranked upon, it would make a lot of sense for the other platforms to helpfully display this. With my cynicism out of the way, I'm now going to talk to you about this retention rate statistic on TikTok. They've rolled that out into analytics. And this tells you, as you would suggest, actually, you can get this similar data on YouTube as well. And you can see, as the name suggests, what's the drop off? How long are people staying on the video for? At what point do you see big spikes in drop off? Because that really is where kind of content optimization can really happen. Are people dropping off at 5, 3 seconds, 10 seconds or whatever? That will really help you optimize your content. And the thing I really like is that TikTok have gone to the extent of, rather than you having to interrogate it yourself, it'll give you the insight at the bottom. Like, it shows a dip at 2 seconds where viewers stop watching a video. So it's really useful, really helpful guidance, and I love that. This I'm not so much a fan on, but that's probably just down to my own personal perspectives, which is activity status. So this really allows a kind of presence icon. If any familiar user of Skype or Microsoft Teams, etc., will be familiar with this kind of setup, or Slack. So when you're online, so, you know, basically if someone DMs you, you know, you've got no excuse that you didn't see it. So that's probably the way I don't like it. But either way, it does allow for that real-time interaction. And if you're slightly more friendly than I am, you probably value this, so you can have those real-time interactions with other folk. More data added to TikTok Insights. This is a free tool anyone can use, and whether you're into TikTok or not, I would recommend this as probably one of the most useful research and audience behavior insights tools that's entirely free of charge. If you just Google TikTok for business and TikTok Insights, you'll be taken to this. But here you'll be able to see, you know, select different audience types that we've been talking about today. Go down here, you'll see industries. So agriculture, mining, manufacturer, all of them are factored here. And then you'll see specific metrics related to that. So if you've got a presentation to your boss that you want to convince them on something, or maybe convince someone on a TikTok strategy, or present to a client, all of that stuff's in here, which can be super useful for presenting to other people and useful to guide your own TikTok strategy. We love a free tool, so recommend that one. A very similar move to what we saw with Twitter and what Luann was talking about just how it's easier to kind of share content to other platforms once you posted it, repurpose it to other platforms. Same thing is happening for TikTok as well, making it easier to share. Their kind of main caveat here is that you know, because it will be a watermarked post, doesn't stop most people. Most reels are kind of watermarked TikToks anyway, but just know from what we spoke about earlier when we're thinking about the kind of ranking mechanism, whether we do actually want to share it. I still also say that on that perspective, like, something's better than nothing. So if you haven't got time to create a unique short form video for each of those platforms, you know, just repurposing it, and even if it's watermarked, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to get punished for doing it. It's just TikTok and Instagram won't rank it as highly. There are also, just as I'm talking about this subject, makes me think of a free tool that you can use. Basically, if you Google remove TikTok watermark, there are free apps that basically, if you've created and edited a video on TikTok and you've posted it, as you know, when you've posted your TikTok video, it goes to your camera roll. Basically, you can just use this app to remove the watermark, and then you can just go ahead and post that to every other platform you please. So that's just a nice way where you can like create it once and then just use it all the time. So sorry for the slight segue here, but hopefully
someone had just asked a question about watermarks, so you've answered it as without even seeing it.
Love it. Yeah. Cool. TikTok launches TikTok Now. You've already alluded to this. Basically, yeah, this is social media platforms just copying each other. So TikTok's not immune for getting the tracing paper out and figuring out what, like, just basically ripping off a feature. Obviously, Instagram are known for it, but obviously TikTok are doing it. They did it. TikTok have done this with stories. You might have seen quite a lot of promotion around TikTok stories. Now TikTok Now, exactly like BeReal, works in exactly the same way. They've got a couple of different approaches to it. In the UK, it is as a separate app. Yeah. So TikTok Now is a separate app, whereas in the US, it's actually a feature within the main app. So I think they're evaluating which is better. Yeah, personally, it's one of those things that's kind of good to know about, but I'm certainly not falling over myself to start doing this. It's not available to everyone either, but consider this more an FYI. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that shouldn't be an FYI. This is massive, if I'm honest, without wanting to kind of overstate the importance of this. Luann, you raised possibly the most important point for the whole of this session, which is the changing behaviors of search. Mm-hmm. Because that's what business is, right? You know, our number one way typically that our business is discovered outside of word of mouth will be Google, right? People searching for something, we appear, and, you know, a kind of customer journey happens off the back of that. But increasingly, as you've already alluded to, Luann, is that not just Gen Zs, but it's starting to go across demographics. But Gen Z is the one that's pushing this, is that demographic will turn to social before Google, and TikTok specifically before Google, when they're trying to be informed and get inspiration, whether it's places to eat, things to buy, basically intent-driven search is happening more on social. Intent-driven search has typically been the preserve of Pinterest, right? We know, I think it's 90% of Pinterest searches are intent-driven. When we say intent-driven, someone's coming saying, I want to look at lampshades or sofas or whatever. So we're seeing much more intent search happening on TikTok. So what they've done as a result, and this is where they're very much going. So that search bar has now become meaningfully bigger and now lives in the For You feed. So that now makes it much more prominent rather than living as a separate space in the app. It's also, it has trending searches. If you click in this, and not all of this is live right now, but it will be soon. If you click in that, it will have like trending searches. Like if you're on Google, you type in a couple of words onto Google, it will tell you some of the searches related to that term. Same thing happening here. And that's really going to have a huge impact in how content is discovered. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of focusing quite a lot on this slide, but I think it's like an important bit because it really starts to shift away how social media works as we know it. Because social media, as we know it, has been build an audience, grow trust, and then, make sales, drive a result at the end of that. But it's always been the top of funnel has been followers ultimately. That is increasingly not being the case. It's not like it. In me saying that, don't change all of your strategies and go, it doesn't matter about followers anymore. Like, please
as you said,
yeah, please say, oh, just stop. There is no black and white, and I always go to great pains to say, like, don't just knee-jerk reactions is what we don't want. But if we look at the direction of travel of social, it's moving away from followers, and it's moving to two elements, both of which we've kind of touched on already, but just as a reminder. Number one is recommended content. So we're being algorithmically recommended content rather than just being served content by our friends or from our friends and our followers. The reason for that is that it keeps us engaged for longer because data is better at predicting the content that we'll like, and TikTok is better at curating the content that we want to see than just having content served to us from those that we follow. That's a hypothesis. It shouldn't really be the case, but it very much is working out for TikTok. It is an entertainment platform. So recommended content is the number one way content's surface. So that's why you can go viral with literally 0 followers. And point two is around search and how we impact search as content creators or as businesses. It's about keywords, and increasingly we're seeing Instagram move in this direction as well, away from hashtags and more focused on keywords. That is something we're going to cover more next month, just for brevity. The reason we talk about keywords, that this is a big piece that links to that, is that you only had 150 characters to play with, where you could just add a couple of hashtags and, a bit of a kind of a one-line quip or whatever the video is. Now we've got 2,200, which is even more than LinkedIn. I think it is anyway. So this is massive. So not only is it massive because we can fit a whole lot of text in there, it's massive because actually this is about long form copy. And the reason it's about long form copy is that it's turning into a search engine. So the keywords that you put into that are going to drive the discovery that happens through search. So these two components, search and longer form descriptions, intrinsically are linked. So the kind of guidance here is for us to rank highly for recommended content. I've already spoken about like the ranking dimensions related to that, so get people to watch to the end, get people to come back week on week, etc. Then we've got to make sure that we have a decent amount of keywords that really accurately describe what's happening in the video with ways that people will search it. So this is very early days here, but we're going to see the dawn of like social SEO, and we'll probably see lots more kind of talks and content related to that. But either way, so this is the first thing to think about. Wow, that was a long now.
Well, isn't it interesting that actually, I believe that part of the popularity of Instagram when it launched and possibly TikTok when it launched was that it was about the creative, the image or the video, and that you didn't have to write too much. And actually now we're coming back to it's about captions and copywriting and, that kind of information as well. So in terms of our work that we do, we've got to think about a lot more, haven't we? We've got to get the words right, and the images and the engagement and the calls to action, and it continues to grow.
Exactly. And I think the interesting thing here is that, you know, we're not really writing this for people necessarily.
No, they're not going to read it. No.
Yeah, but yeah, we're writing this to appear, right? We're writing it for TikTok so that we will appear. So there's too much to cover right now as to what we need to do there. But I think just as a directional piece and thinking about strategies going into 2023, those kind of 2 dimensions, recommendations and search intent are 2 areas where social's very much changing. 5 guests on TikTok Live, simple update, super powerful. You know, we talk in previous sessions that Luana and I have done together, talk heavily about collaboration, the importance of thinking beyond your feed, working with others like we're doing right now. Well, like this whole event is, to be honest. Lives are performing still very well in terms of engagement on all of the platforms. So definitely recommend that. And of course, the more people you go live with, the more feeds it gets recommended into. So yeah, more the merrier. YouTube.
We're nearly there. We're nearly there.
We are nearly there. Hopefully we've still got some people with us.
We have. Everyone.
Ads come to YouTube Shorts. Now, there's another piece to this that is particularly interesting that I'm going to stop myself from getting too excited about. But one piece of this, so ads coming to YouTube Shorts, that's no difference to ads coming to Instagram Reels, right? So good for brands, another opportunity to display our products, etc. Nothing new there. But what is new is how creators are paid against those ads. One of the biggest challenges of TikTok is that if you're a creator and you've got 1 million followers, etc., and an ad runs in between your video, there's no way of attributing the advertising revenue that's been either driven through that ad or paid by the advertiser. As a creator, you don't see any of that. The only way you get paid is part of this kind of overriding pot of money that you get a little percentage of. Basically, you don't get much if you're on TikTok. YouTube Shorts is going to give you 45% split of all the advertising revenue. Now that is massive. That was the same thing, the same way that creators get paid on their long form YouTube content. And it's easier for them to get paid on that because they run a popular video that, as you know, ads run at the start, so pre-roll, mid-roll, and at the end. So it's easy to attribute the advertising revenue to that creator and be able to kind of pay that creator appropriately. They're doing the same thing for Shorts, which is really cool. The reason I say this, because you might be thinking was kind of irrelevant to me, the reason why it is important is because with the launch of this and the growth of Shorts in general, because 1.5 billion people watch Shorts every single month, so it's absolutely massive already, is that with more money, more creators will come to the platform. So more people will create content on Shorts. And when creators move, they bring their audiences with them. When the audience come with them, then that's when more time is spent on the platform and more people end up using it. So basically, this slide is exactly the same as the slide we started with. Make sure YouTube is part of your strategy or you're considering YouTube, because it's there's power in it now and even more power in it potentially in future. We can now reply to Shorts comments with a video. Nothing particularly new here. It's the same thing that we can do on Instagram, reply to comments with video, another level of depth of engagement, if you will. And Snapchat, question stickers, very similar to what we have on stories and reels across multiple platforms anyway, just to prompt that engagement. And there we go, 50 slides, we are done. 5 takeaways. We've spoken a lot about the recommendation logics for like Facebook and Instagram. We talk about the algorithm like it's a mysterious beast. It's not black magic. It's very clear, simple 4 things to give us the best chance of success. The only thing that we can't predict is what Instagram will do with Reels, whether they're going to push it up or restrict it. So, you know, TikTok, we've spent lots about that. So TikTok is representing once again the future direction and setting the pace for where social is going. So it's if you post on TikTok or not, it really does set the direction of social. I've been speaking about like recommendation and search. Keep an eye on Be Real. We spoke about that. Don't necessarily move everything to it, but it is growing. It's the start of the hype cycle. I've spoken about Reels. It's unpredictable. Don't blame yourself. It's a flipping nightmare. It is what it is. But they're kind of overriding positive. Yes, we can end on a positive. Yeah. Content repurposing literally has never been easier. Despite some of the kind of, it is frustrating when everyone's like, oh my word, TikTok's all about short form video. We all need to do that. But the fact is, short form video, it's ubiquitous. It's the only content format that works across every single platform. There isn't a platform that doesn't support it, which means, along with all of the tools that we've spoken about together to, like, you know, auto create stories as reels, or auto create, you know, videos automatically become reels on Facebook. Content repurposing has never, ever been easier. It's easier to do. We don't have to change as much. So even though we have to kind of shift our focus to short form video, which I think that's abundantly clear, repurposing that content has never been easier. So if there's one silver lining to some of the craziness that's happened over the course of this month, I'm going to leave it on that positive note, and we're done.
We're done. We are done. There has been wonderful comments and chat going on today, but I'm going to leave them because that has been a marathon session from both of us, and there's a lot to take in. So it's really just a huge thank you, Andy, for joining me. I've just popped the link in the chat again that we are going to be back every month doing these and share what we think and what's happening and how you can adapt as well. So yeah, thank you, Andy, for joining us.